Hey, it's Craig Syracusa. Welcome to another episode of Walk in Faith, the show where we go beyond the image and we discover who our guests really are. You might know them from TV, the big screen, even the world of sports, but do we really know who they are as a person? Do we know what motivates them? Do we know what inspires them? Well, that's what we're here to find out. On this episode, we're joined by Natasha Bure, singer, author, and YouTube sensation. We'll talk about her book and her own personal faith journey that was her inspiration for writing it. Stay tuned. Walk with us. You know, I must say, I read a lot of books, listened to a lot of motivational speakers and preachers, and when I was reading your book, I was like, the amount of knowledge and experience that you have at such a young age is really, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Like, that book should be on, like, you know, the summer reading list for all teenagers and even young adults. I learned a lot just by reading it, especially about fears.
Yes, thank you.
Were you always religious, or?
Yeah, I've always grown up in a Christian home ever since I was born, so it's definitely been a part of my life since I was an infant.
Wow. And your mom and your Uncle Kirk, were they always Christian as well, or did they?
I mean, they grew up in a Christian home, but I don't think it was like as prominent, their faith, until they were much older. And then once they had kids, they were, you know, at least my mom was very much, you know, more strong about her faith.
Did they have like an aha moment, which you mentioned in your book, or is there anything that took place that made them sort of, you know, find their faith?
I'm not sure exactly. I think just having been around it for so long, and people probably influenced them a lot.
And your extended family, your dad's also Christian, right?
Yes, yes.
So do you guys ever go to church all together, like one
Every
big family?
Sunday we go to church together, yeah.
Really? What church do you go to?
We go to Shepherd of the West Side.
Okay. That's cool. I go to a church in Brooklyn.
Oh, cool,
I go
yeah.
every Sunday. I also volunteer.
Yeah.
I love going to church.
Yeah, we go to, usually our Sundays are, we go to a farmer's market in the morning.
Oh, I love farmers
like our
market.
whole family,
like
yeah.
that.
And we, you know, go and we like eat crepes and sandwiches and omelets there, and then we go to church, and then usually my brothers have hockey games, so then we go to the hockey game after, and that's really fun. So it's definitely like a family day.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And now, your Uncle Kirk, just a question about him. What's your favorite thing about your Uncle Kirk?
He's a very passionate person. Anything that he's into, he's super passionate. Anything that he talks about or anything that he does, he's just super, super passionate about it. And I think that kind of goes for anyone who I'm related to. We're all very passionate, so I think that'd be my favorite thing.
Do you think you would ever follow in his footsteps in terms of like a motivational speaker? I mean, because the book is amazing. Like, do you think you would go in that direction at all?
I don't think I would ever be a motivational speaker, although I'd love to go speak at places, but I don't think that it would be my career choice, but I would obviously still love to do it.
What do you think God's plan is for your life?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I think there's so many things in my life that I would have never expected that has happened, and I think that's what's so beautiful, and the beauty behind God's plan is that you never know what He's going to bring in front of you, and just the opportunities that I've had and the trials and tribulations that I've faced, and seeing the growth of my life has been tremendous, and I'm just very thankful.
And you would say that He's directing your steps, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So do you think like some of the not the goals, but some of the talents or gifts that we have, I believe, and you believe obviously, they're from God. But do you
100%.
do you think that when we have those talents, we should use them to do what with? To glorify God? What are we supposed to do with these talents?
Absolutely, to glorify God. That is one thing, especially just with my love for singing. I've always, nobody in my family sings. And so my mom's like, this is definitely God-given talent. And I was like, I want to use my gifts to glorify God and to bring glory to His name, and to use a platform that I have, you know, when I do have a platform, to speak about things that are important, and, you know, ultimately to bring praise to Him. So it's definitely important.
And in your book, you mentioned about being a star, right? Now, let's say one day you decide, you know what, I don't want to follow that path, and you decide you want to be a nurse. Would you be, you know, satisfied with that? Like, how do you leverage, I guess, being a star versus just following a plan?
I think I don't necessarily have a plan of I have to do this and this and this and this and this. I don't really have these little checkpoints. I have things that I'd like to accomplish, definitely. But I think right now I'm just following what makes me happy, and for me, like music and writing a book, all these things make me happy. And being able to have a platform and to share this information that I have and the advice that I have with younger girls or anything like that, it makes me happy. And I feel like I am, you know, bringing light into a dark world of where there's social media or just things that can oftentimes bring a lot of girls doubt. And so in that, it's a good feeling, and I'm happy. And I think that if one day I decide that it's not my plan, or if God decides that this is not my plan, then, you know, whatever I meant to do, I think I will end up doing.
And how do we know if it's God's plan? Like sometimes we get these feelings like, you know, I think this is what we need to do, and then we're confused or conflicted. Is it my own desire? Is it God's? Like, how do we determine or distinguish the voice? Or is there a voice? Like, do you ever wonder?
I definitely think there is. For me, I don't think that there's ever been a other plan. I mean, like as far as my knowledge for me, but I know I have so many friends who have been on a certain life path and things have changed, and you know, you hear these stories about God really speaking to them in their lives, and that's amazing. And I mean, for me, like, it's hard because I don't feel like I've really felt that you know, at a time where I felt, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, or this is not my path. I haven't gotten that feeling, so it's hard for me to say, but I think that just seeing from other people and other people's experiences, I think it's definitely a part of life and possible.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the spotlight. I mean, I know a lot of celebrities, and sometimes it's difficult for them to speak out about their faith. Even millennials, like, they won't identify with the faith. Do you find that to be challenging for you? I mean, because you're extremely outspoken, but why do you think celebrities or just people in general have such a difficulty identifying with faith?
I think people don't want to be judged. I think people don't want to have a target on their back or have some reason to be criticized. And that's not to say that I don't deal with that, because I definitely do. And I definitely don't love being judged by other people who don't know me or who make assumptions about me just because I believe in a certain thing or I act a certain way. That's never fun. But I think for me, seeing family members especially, and other influences in my life who are very outspoken about their faith, and seeing the positive reaction that they've gotten, it makes me so much more confident to be outspoken about my faith and to not care about what other people think, because as long as I feel in my heart that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm doing it for the right reasons, I think that I can continue to stay confident. And if it was the other way around, and if my entire focus was, oh, I don't know if people are going to criticize me for being a Christian, or I'm not sure if people are going to judge me for having this belief, then for sure I would be much more scared to talk about my faith. But if that's not my priority and not my focus, then it's not as hard.
And what happens now, say a role comes your way or an opportunity, and it could, you know, catapult your career, but it goes against our religious belief system. What would you do? I mean, would you decide not to do it, or would you do it?
I don't know. I think that would definitely be an in-the-moment thing, but I would never compromise my values, and I would never put myself out there in a way that misrepresented what I stand for and the things that I stand for. And I mean, having a mother who has dealt with similar things, I can only see from her experiences of how she's overcome that and how she's, you know, stood her ground and not let society and the things that it tells, you know, us that are social norms or you know, idea of perfection or anything like that to overrule her and what she stands by. And, you know, to see that, it encourages me.
I think that's great. I think that actually your uncle too had an issue with it. It's something where I think in Growing Pains, there were certain scenes and things that he wouldn't do that went against his belief system. I mean, I commend you. That's And then you also mentioned about living a faith-based life where people could see sort of Christ living in you. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what do you mean? Like, is it something that I can see? Is it tangible? Like, what exactly
It's definitely not tangible. I think that if you were to have a conversation with me, or if you were to see me out, I mean, maybe not walking on the street, maybe that's a little too
it's like a halo
broad.
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that if you were to have a conversation with me, or if you were to see the way that I interact, I would want someone to question, and this is to say for anyone, not, you know, just me, but just to question what makes them different. What is that little spark inside of them that makes them completely different than the person next to them? What's the reason that they have joy? What's the reason that compels them? What's the reason that they have love in their heart? And for me, that is Christ. And I hope that people would see that inside of me and question, she's different. And what makes her different? And ultimately, I want to bring glory to God, and that was the reason that I would ever be put in that situation or that way. So I think to live a Christ-like life, that's what it means, and I would want to be a light.
Yeah. And you mentioned that bright light. So that's similar to what you just said, right?
Yes.
Bright light.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you are in the world and there's so much hate going on, and there's so much controversy, and you're filled in a world where people aren't always going to agree with what you say. It can tend to be a dark world, and you don't always feel hopeful about the future or about anything. And so I think for me, I kind of think of it as that if you are that one light, you can illuminate a lot of other people, and you can start more lights. And
in your book, it definitely translates. I mean, the way you walk and carry yourself. I've known you for 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I mean, you could definitely see it.
Thank you.
Do you have any pet peeves though? It seems like you're such a jolly person. But
I do. I have quite
a.
I don't like when people. This is like a really weird pet peeve. But if a door is closed and then someone opens it and they leave it open, or it's like slightly open, I need it to be either fully open or fully closed.
Oh my God.
That's like one of my weird pet peeves. Like if my brothers come in my room and my door is just closed and they kind of almost shut it, but it's like not fully shut, it drives me bananas.
What about if somebody moves something?
I'm kind of like that. I need everything like a little straight. Yeah, I don't know. I just
like a drill sergeant.
I love if it's like aesthetically pleasing to me and everything's lined up perfectly, I'm like, I just feel good about life. And when it's a little off, I'm like, no, I have to change it. Like I have to.
What about like the word sin? What does that mean to you? What do you think a sin is?
I think we live in a very, very sinful world. And then I think that for me, sin is something that I've dealt with since I was born. I was born into sin, and I think that Christ is the person, and God, who can lift me out of that, and who can encourage me to not live a sinful life, but to live a Christ-like life. And I think it's important to set that example when you do have a relationship with Him, to encourage others to live a life like that.
Well, that's a great answer. Mine's a lot shorter. That's great.
I tend to elaborate on everything.
I'm like, actually, sin is. I can answer that in 2 seconds.
You might get a little extra when you ask me questions.
Oh, that's great. What about prayer? Do you pray? Do you I know you mentioned about daily. Write daily in your journal. Like, what do you do? Do you pray at all? How do you speak to God?
I do. I pray. My family and I are very, very into prayer. We pray before meals, we pray before we go to bed, we pray before we leave the car when we go to school, and we're constantly crying out to Jesus, and that is what prayer is. And for me, a huge way is I keep a prayer journal, and I've kept it for the past couple of years, but there was a time where I felt like I had so much to say, and sometimes it's a little weird praying and you feel like you aren't getting a direct response from somebody else. And so for me, writing it down and remembering what I was praying about, it's cool to see the reflection of how things have changed. I would keep it, and I even still look at my prayer journal from 3 years ago and think, I prayed about that, and God answered my prayers in this way. And maybe it was a no, and maybe my answer was a yes, but it's cool to look back on that. And so a prayer journal has definitely been, a really key part of my prayer life, but definitely something that is, very prominent in me and my family's life.
That's a great idea. Anything you would share with us? Anything that you've written in your journal that came true? Was it maybe being on The Voice? Was that part of it?
Oh no, I never prayed to be on The Voice.
No?
That was very
Are you praying to go back?
No, I am not. No, I think just a lot of things that I did was just for things to become much more clear in my life, and things to, for God to open my life and my eyes to things that I'd never seen before. And just over the past couple of years, I think becoming more mature, I have noticed that.
What about, have you ever doubted your faith, or have you ever been sort of in a dark place?
When I was in 9th grade, I definitely went through a dark phase in my life. I was doubtful of my faith. I did not want to seek out the Lord. I did not want to pray. I did not want to go to church. I wasn't excited about going to youth group. I was definitely in a really, I don't even know how to explain it to this day. I talk about it in my book, definitely, but I think that I don't know what was going on in that time of my life. But it definitely was not me. It was just this other person that I wasn't happy, and I wasn't myself. And my parents tried so hard to get me out of that zone and to get me, to laugh and to be happy and to be passionate about things, and just nothing was really striking me to do that. And it wasn't until I actually went to a Christian summer camp that I've gone to for years after that, and it's amazing. And you go up and you play sports all day, and you're with your friends, and it's like the best thing ever. But it was the Lord, I think, who changed everything for me, of just being in the Word every day and learning more about Him and pursuing a relationship with Him that completely turned my life around. And for that's honestly was such a cool experience to go through, and not necessarily a very fun one, but just seeing the dramatic change in my life when I had turned away versus when I was fully invested in Him.
Do you think that was sort of like a test of faith? Do you think
100% it was a test of faith. Obviously, I'm still surrounded by people who are encouraging me in my faith, but that doesn't mean that people around me are going to dictate my faith. I dictate it. And so that was definitely a test of faith. And, obviously seeing both sides of it, it was very interesting.
In your book too, you speak about, which I found to be fascinating, was about social media, about some of the negative aspects of it. Do you think social media in general, or just certain, how is it negative? Does it have a negative impact on the youth?
I don't think that it's negative at all. I am on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on YouTube 24/7, so I definitely don't think that it's a negative thing. I think that it is an amazing thing. I think that it can bring light to so many topics that are important. At the same time, there are certain parts about it that can be a little shady, and that can potentially lead to comparison or lead to not being your genuine self. And I think for me, learning that over the past couple of years has definitely influenced me, obviously, to write this book, because that's a huge part of it. But I do love social media. It's a huge part of my life.
And then one thing too, about social media, is there a difference between, say, Facebook friends versus, physical friends? And why are people, especially kids, so fixated on having so many friends? What is the meaning behind that? Why do we need to have these friends?
I have no idea. When I was in 10th grade, I was so into Facebook, and I would add everybody, and I was waiting when I got a friend request. I would feel so cool, and I just wanted all these friends. And now I have a core group of probably 6 friends, and that's all I talk to.
But Snapchat and Instagram, it's...
Yes,
I said Facebook, I'm showing my age.
Yes.
Facebook's not cool anymore.
Yeah, but no, I think when I was focused on having a lot of friends, whether it be on social media or not, it was because I was insecure with who I was, and I wasn't happy with who I was, and I kind of wanted to prove that, I have a lot of friends, and that I am cool and I'm popular. And being so confident in who I am now and loving who I am now as a young woman, I don't feel the need to have all these friends and to make myself seem cooler than I am. I'm happy with who I am, and for the friends that do love me for who that person is, that's enough for me.
How could we use social media in a good way, well, it's good, but to sort of put out God's message? Is it possible to use social media?
100%. You can put out anything you want on social media, so I think if you want to put that out, then you do.
And then you also mentioned in the book about putting the needs of other people first. In your own life, how do you live up to that, or do you live up to that, putting the needs of other people?
I think when you put others' needs before your own, you become selfless, and you're thinking about not necessarily the outcome of what's going to happen for me, but you're putting the joy of somebody else before you, and that's almost a gratifying feeling in itself. And it is the key to maintaining relationships with people, whether it be friendships or a romantic relationship or whatever it may be. I think in general, just being selfless and wanting to put somebody else before yourself is very important.
And then you also mentioned about fear in the book. What are you afraid of? Or are you afraid of anything, and how did you overcome it?
I'm afraid of heights.
Just heights, that's it?
I'm afraid of a lot of other things, but I would say my biggest fear is heights, and I think pushing yourself is really important and key. You want to be able to push the boundaries and push the limits and not limit yourself to what you can do just based on your fears. I used to be deathly afraid of heights and wouldn't go on roller coasters, wouldn't go on any high ropes course or anything like that. I was so afraid. And now I do them. Even if I cry, which most of the time I do, I'm bawling my eyes out. I still do it because I just want to prove to myself that I can do it. And it's such a cool feeling even after you put yourself through all that misery probably for me. Like every time I do something like that, I'm like terrified and my heart drops. But it's a good feeling to know, okay, I can do it. You know, I can.
It's, exactly. Once you overcome that or just, come to that realization, like, well, what am I really afraid of? Especially with heights. Like that's one that I'm sort of afraid of. But I did go skydiving to overcome it.
You did?
Yeah.
What?
Twice.
No.
If I go up high in a building, I'm like nervous, so I went skydiving.
No, thank you.
Do you have any weaknesses at all?
I'm a very stubborn person.
Are you?
But I think that can be used as both a weakness and a strength. My mom likes to tell me that, if you are stubborn, which I am, like that can obviously be used in a negative way, but you can also turn it around and use it in a positive way. Too. Yeah.
What's the ultimate plan you think for your life and career?
I don't know exactly what the ultimate goal is. I know what I want to do right now, and I want to pursue music, and I want to be pursuing being in the entertainment industry and acting and modeling and singing and writing a book, and all of that is great. But at the end of the day, I don't know where I'm going to be in a couple of years. I think that's what's cool about life is you never know what's going to happen. I never thought I would write a book at 18 years old, and I did. So that was amazing. And I think just because I just let it roll, just let life happen. You'll
figure it out. God will place something in your heart, and then it changes so quickly too. You might today want to do one thing, and then tomorrow do something else. And what would you say, final question, what would you say to some of the teens, say, out there that are struggling with their faith? What would you say to them?
I would say ask questions. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to question things. Don't be afraid to think outside of the box, and don't limit yourself to maybe only the knowledge that you know or only the knowledge that you've been told. And if you are struggling with your faith, that's okay. Everyone struggles at one point in your life, and I think it's about having those tough conversations with mentors or your parents or friends who can influence you. But you don't grow unless you struggle a little bit, and I think that that's something that a lot of people forget, is that it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be perfect, but there are struggles, and with that comes a great learning experience. And I think if anyone is struggling, just to persevere.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a wonderful interview. Great.
Thank you.
Great answer, and good luck with the book. We'll help you however we can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. Thank you. Hey, that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Always remember, we have the ability to inspire and evangelize through our words and actions. Till next time, thanks for walking with us.